Hey everybody, how you doing? This is Dan Blanchard, the Travel in Time with Dan Show, where we mix travel with history, with leadership, and of course, with me, Dan Blanchard. Today, I am at the LZ-129 Hindenburg disaster site. This was the largest Zeppelin ever made, 804 feet long, size of 3 football fields. And this is where it took place. Right over here, about a mile down the road. They wouldn't let me on the base without a military ID, of course, security. But this is where it took place, right here behind me. So now listen, this, if you're not familiar with it, I'm assuming most of you are familiar with the Hindenburg. But if you're not familiar with the Hindenburg, right, this is all part of like the Nazi regime, Hitler's regime, right? It was like their flying ambassador, right? It was like their miracle of science, right? Where they got to show the world their German industrial supremacy, right? It was all that stuff. Joseph Goebbels, the minister of propaganda, he loved this. He put a big tail swastika on the Zeppelin, right? And they flew it all around the place, or maybe I should say floated it all around the place, right? And it was a great, great propaganda. Some of the best propaganda they got out of it was floating it above the 1936 Berlin Olympic Games, right? That was freaking huge, where the Nazis, Hitler and the boys are showing everybody how great they were, right? So the funny thing is, we all hear about this crashing, right? This disaster, but believe it or not, right? Believe it or not, the Hindenburg made 10 successful trips to the U.S. and back without any problems, right? But in 1927, something very interesting happens. The United States, who pretty much has a monopoly on the helium, passes a law. It's called the Helium Control Act of 1927, where they're going to make it pretty much possible for the Germans, especially the Nazis, they're going to hold the helium, right, for their Zeppelin, like for the Hindenburg, right? And because they can't get a hold of the helium, they're going to have to re-engineer the Hindenburg to use hydrogen. Now that may sound like a bad idea because hydrogen is way more flammable. However, there's a good thing. You get more lift with the hydrogen, but it's flammable. That's a problem. But remember, the Germans went back and forth with their Zeppelins a bunch of times with no problems, right? They made 10 trips, right? And this was in 1927. So, this is now like 10 years later, May 6, 1937, where the Hindenburg's flying up over here over New Jersey, flying up over here, getting ready to touch down. They're throwing the ropes down. Looks like everything's going to be all right. There's like a little bit of a thunderstorm going on. People are a little nervous, but hey, I think they're going to be all right, right? And then boom, a fire breaks out. It kills 36 of the people as the Hindenburg crashes and burns. Thankfully, they were close to the ground, and believe it or not, most of the people in the Hindenburg actually survived because they were kind of close to the ground. They were close enough, like the ropes, to like kind of be touching for people to grab the rope and start pulling them down, whatnot. But you would think like everybody died when you see the videos of it. It looks like everybody dies, but only 36 die. I don't want to say only 36. That's absolutely terrible. But a lot of people do live, which is very, very surprising. Now, what happened? Nobody really knows, to tell you the truth. There's like lots of different theories. Some people say, there's the static spark theory, like the St. Elmo's fire, right? There's other people say, no, it wasn't that. It's the incendiary paint theory, right? With the outer layer of the Hindenburg was coated with this stuff that they call flammable dope, right? That kind of sounds crazy, right? Almost looking for an accident or something, right? But that's what they say. There was a Chicago radio station, WLS, that was here, that has one of the most famous broadcasts, one of the famous lines of all time, when he says, "Oh, the humanity," right, of this as he's witnessing the explosion, the burning of people, the dying of people. It's absolutely crazy. It's freaking so sad, right? Again, but this is taking place right here as they're attempting to land, a whole bunch of film, radio, all that stuff, and it's right here at the Naval Air Station Lakehurst, which is like right here. This is where it all took place, right? So the crazy thing about this, one of the things that shifted the world, was that this was one of the first disasters like this that was witnessed by millions through modern media. Yeah, millions, right? Got to see this and hear this through modern media. And there becomes a shift away from like the Zeppelins, a shift to the airplanes is happening because of this disaster. Now, when I do my travel in time with Dan shows, I mix travel with history, with leadership, and of course me, Dan Blanchard. Travel, I guess it's kind of hard to get down here, and it's going to be tough to let you in, but they do have tours. If you have a military ID, you can get in here, and if you come on a day where there's a scheduled tour, right, you can get in here. Actually, you have to bring a military, not a military, but you have to bring an ID. Make sure you bring an ID or they won't let you in, but you can definitely tour it, all right? I've given you a little bit of history of this place. So now what is the leadership lesson? Well, the leadership lesson is innovation, right? Remember, this is like the miracle of science by the Germans. Innovation, right? Innovation of the Zeppelin. Innovation, any innovation must be balanced with safety, right? When they could no longer use the helium, they went to hydrogen. Hydrogen gave them more lift, but it's also more flammable. Where's that fine line between making things continue to work somehow and putting people in jeopardy, right? Putting people at risk. Who knows why this thing happened, but it did. All right, so innovation. When you have innovation, you must balance it with safety. All right, everybody, thank you for spending the time with me today over here at the Lakehurst entrance to the military base where the Hindenburg disaster took place. Appreciate spending time with me. Where we spend on Travel in Time with Dan, where we mix travel with history, leadership, and of course me, Dan Blanchard. Be back real soon with another great episode somewhere else. And until then, you take care now.